And you've kindly allowed me to call you Joe, which is very nice of you. And Joe, listen to me. For anybody that doesn't know you, and I will do a kind of an intro before this podcast, can you give us an idea of where you're at, who you're working for, and your role right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, I am located in the beautiful state of Arizona, in Phoenix, and I've been here in Arizona for right around 15 years. And I work for a company called Intel Corporation. It's a semiconductor company. We do end-to-end manufacturing of leading-edge technology chips and packaging. So it's all end-to-end. One. And I'm the vice president and GM of project controls for Intel worldwide.
Brilliant. And I cannot wait to get into the meat of that conversation because we have got a lot to discuss. The only US owned end-to-end semiconductor manufacturer. Really looking forward to getting into that, talking about all things tariffs, talking about the challenges you're going through right now and how you're solving them, and then talking about project controls, going from chief estimator into project controls, how that changed your role. But before that, let's go back to the start.
Yeah.
When you were in high school, Joe, was it always construction for you?
Oh, no, I was a baseball player.
Oh,
So
there you go.
back in high school, I played baseball and I played music as well. I had an artistic side as well. Played in a lot of bands, many dreams, as a lot of people do coming into high school.
What kind of stuff did you play, Joe? What was the music?
I played in country music bands, and I did some local rock bands, but I actually toured with a group called Deborah Hayes and the Country Express, and we did shows with back in the early 80s, like Ricky Skaggs, Ray Stevens. We were like an opening, up-and-coming young band, and I played music since I was very young. My father was a pastor at a church, and so that's where I learned a lot of the music background. So I play piano, bass, drums, guitar, banjo, fiddle, mandolin, and so that's always, since I was 4 years old, that's been an inspiration to me. And then as I got older, I got into sports, and I loved sports. And never dream that, life events happen and then you're either taking a left turn or you're taking a right turn. And then your career goes on a total different path.
Brilliant. Talk to us about that turn. What did you turn then towards baseball, or was it a case of no? And I kind of like my story. So I graduated in 2006, played professional football in Europe for like 7 or 8 years. And then eventually the penny dropped to say, the money that I'm earning will probably last me about 6 months when I finish my career. So I need to start thinking about strategically.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so for me, I pivoted it and went towards the music side, and I had auditions set up with some very large up-and-coming bands at the time. And then also at the time, I was debating the military, non-military, and long story short, there was a girl involved at the time, and it broke your heart, broke my heart, and I decided, you know what, I just want to try something totally different and just go into the military and see how that goes. And so I did some extents in the Army, National Guard, and then the Coast Guard Reserve. And in that time, I was going to college. And that's my brother was an electrical engineer. And I figured, well, if he could do it, then it must be possible that, I could go down that path. So that's how the road, turned and pivoted and put me on a total different trajectory life has taken me today.
Well, we are absolutely delighted that lady broke your heart, because it meant that we got you into estimating, pre-construction and project controls. We don't know where we would be without you.
Ah, lovely.
Brilliant. So then, obviously, electrical engineer by trade, went into the design side with KBR. How was that, and how important was that in your overall thinking right now within project controls and pre-construction?
Oh, yeah. And when I made that, I'd also went to school and did CAD, AutoCAD, and stuff like that. But when I become a co-op student with Kellogg's Brown and Root, at the time it was owned by Halliburton, and then they sold to Kellogg's during that time. But I was a co-op student with them, an electrical engineering co-op student, and that was foundational to giving me the knowledge of what I do today, because I was in charge at the time. They had just finished the first Gulf War in 1989, 1990, 91, around that time frame. And Brown and Root had the rebuild of Ras Tanur in Saudi Arabia, and I was on that project. And I was assigned to design with like 60 substations and control rooms, and all of the lighting and distribution and grounding for that. So learning the design aspect was phenomenal. And I did that for 18 years. I went through doing electrical design, Kellogg's Brown and Root. Then I got into PLC programming, which was the instrumentation side, learning how, speccing out instruments and finding loop sheets. And but once, in the early 90s, computers were just coming on board. Actually had this conversation with one of the young lads yesterday on Excel. And I said, well, I remember when Lotus Works came out back in the early 90s, and that was the spreadsheet and things. And I thought that was a great conversation. So I've never heard of that. I thought Excel was the beginning of time for what we do. And so to me, that was all foundational of backgrounds of project controls, of understanding, one, being able to design and understand the design and scope implications in the design and the means and methods needed to get it installed, and doing project startups in the field, the construction, working with these companies really gave me a lot of knowledge on what was required to control and manage projects. I got into the PLC side and the control logic side of it. That's when I started learning the actual applications of how, my background was electrical, but learning the process and the mechanical and all that has to be controlled through the PLCs and everything really gave me the end-to-end knowledge of and as a whole, not just isolated to one discipline. Yeah, I have knowledge in, electrical and INC the most and can design in that, but having the knowledge in mechanical process really helps, especially on feasibility studies and early estimates and setting up project controls is foundational for me to pivot into that career as we moved along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine now as VP of Project Controls, putting a kind of a multidisciplinary team together, you would like that. Talk to me now about that stepping in as chief estimator to Intel. How did all that all come about? And was it a case of, well, I'll ask you, why did you make the move?
Yeah, I made the move. I had a friend that worked. He called it, hey, I'm out here at a little company called Intel. Intel at the time was one of the biggest semiconductors in the world, the leading edge technology at the time. He said they have zero project control estimating and money, because back then you got to remember in the computer industry, Intel owned 80% of the market. And I mean, it was a cash cow kind of thing. And they were the leading edge technology industry at the time. And so they were building new factories. And he asked me, hey, can you come out and help us get this set up for them and get some controls? Because they recognize, they got to be responsible with the money and start controlling it, because these contractors, they focus on chip design. I mean, super high tech manufacturing. They're not construction experts, and they realize, hey, we need some construction experts to come control this, because these contractors are pretty savvy in how they navigate change orders and stuff. So my intent was just to come out for about a year, help them get it set up, and get things under control. And then I was going to go on to another adventure and set up my own project controls company and ride off into the sunset. And so as I got here, the semiconductor fascinated. I've never, prior to that, I had worked in oil and gas, chemical plants, pulp and paper. Worked at all the paper companies in the U.S. I've never worked for a company where one project had it all in one. So a semiconductor is a manufacturer that has like 178 batch elements in order to facilitate it. They have huge substations to power them. We build our own water plants. We have our own bulk gas plants and our own chiller yards. And I mean, these are massive. And just to give you an example of one of our leading edge technology factories we're building today, has almost 4 million square feet under roof. These are massive size building, and in the clean room area is over 650,000 clean room square footage. These are very big facilities. So obviously it takes a lot of cooling, a lot of power. There's a lot of chems and gases. And so it was so fascinating. While I was there, the actual Intel employee that was managing all that at the time was retiring, and they asked me, hey, can you step into this position as the chief estimator and come over and just help finishing setting this up? I said, okay, I'll do that for another year and finish it out. And then 21 years later, here I am. and what's fascinating, though, is not one single project is the same. It's every project is something new, because you can imagine, as technology evolves, so does the factories to build that technology has to evolve with them. So things are constantly evolving. You learn things that outside of the world, you would never know how to navigate and manage the amount and volume of change that a semiconductor has to deal with. And the reason the change is so big, because you can't wait till design is complete to start construction, to bid it and then construct it. You got to get enough information going where you can start onboarding contractors, get them moving in the field while you're still designing it. And while you're about 50, 60% in design, they're still inventing the technology. So you're going to get more change as this thing evolves and keeps going. So project controls is very critical to control change and control the money properly forward.
Yeah, I love it. What an introduction. And Joe, talk to me about going from chief estimator to project controls. How did you evolve that? You were obviously the first person in the team way back when. Now you've built the team up, and how have you structured it as you've gone? How important has that been?
Yeah, it's been a journey. We started in the estimating, setting up the estimating department and getting it, and we did some of the cost management piece. Even though we called it estimating, it was still cost management. But at the time, it was set up where we had scheduling was under one group, estimating and cost was under a different group, and then the project management was under a fourth group. And so it was kind of very matrix organization. Even today, there's still a lot of matrixy just because of the size of the projects. I mean, one project can easily be $15 billion just for the infrastructure itself. So these are very large projects, but we also have a lot of small projects. I mean, we can have at any given time, 80 projects going on, ranging from 20 million up to $10 billion. They're all over the gamut. But the estimating itself, it evolved by first understanding the industry. So I hooked up with American Society of Professional Estimators. I synced in with the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and started learning, because I was coming from a design, and I got already, when I was with Brown and Root, and then another company I went to work for was Archon. I got into the project controls already with them out of necessity, that the estimating companies could not estimate accurately enough because of the quality of the information. They needed more detail to get more accurate information. Well, with my background, I could fill in the scope implications. If we knew what the drivers were, I could go figure out the distribution, what else was needed from instrumentation, the power, and so forth, to make it work and get accurate costs and set controls in place. So when I came to Intel, the first thing I recognized, the entire industry in construction and in estimating and project controls is geared and set up from the contractor's viewpoint and contractor's advantage. When you look at it from an owner's perspective, not geared. When you go buy any of your books, any of your tools and databases and things you need, it's geared towards the contractors. We had to go start from scratch in building the owner's view. And since then, a lot has evolved from the owner side into the industry, both from contracts, BIM, scheduling, all have worked. What I had on the journey that I went on was marrying looking at it from a contractor's view, because we had to understand that, and then looking at it, what does an owner need to be successful and ensure that you're protecting investment that your company's about to go make, and how are you going to control and ensure that you don't pull up your website and you see on YouTube or pick your platform, and there's some boat that says change order on it. That is from an owner's perspective, that's a bad feeling, knowing that you gave all that money away just because of mismanagement.
Yeah.
And so that's the journey we went on, and setting up, and it's global, by the way. The other beauty of this role, that the journey that I went on and the career path I'm in, is not just U.S. based. I've learned all of the U.S. processes and mechanisms for estimating, scheduling, cost management, but also in Europe. Europe does it different. Half of my team are quantity surveyors. We're tied in with the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, and the SMM7 means and methods for Europe. We know it very well. And then you switch and keep going around the globe over to Asia. Same thing. They have their processes and their means and methods of how they do business. We have projects going on all over the planet and over 12 different countries at any given time. And so understanding the different means and methods, processes, and how things operate in those countries are very important. So that was the estimating, getting that department set up, and we've toggled up and down in headcount, but today, we've got about, there's 100+ people in the organization today around the globe, protecting the investment that the company's making.
Incredible. And again, 100 people doing, I think we talked numbers earlier, can be anything from 17 billion one year to 30 billion the next year, depending on demand. That's huge numbers.
Yeah, these are big capital investments that the company has made, and we're on a new trajectory of trying to get our new technology out the door. So we have scaled back some, but we're still in the billions of dollars of capital investments for these factories and retooling, which is huge. If we were we had spoke earlier, if we were a construction company, we would be one of the biggest construction companies in the world as a construction company. I mean, we do a lot of volume of construction.
Incredible. And I want to touch on the international side of it just quickly before we move on. You've got Asia, you've got Europe, and you've got the US. I've worked in Asia, Europe, and the US. It's very, very different. Have you taken the best of all three and kind of introduced it to certain areas, or do you just do it differently in each area?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think we try to fit for purpose depending on the size and the scale of the project. But there are some foundational stuff that we've put into place that I think is helped us navigate the differences. You're always going to have building code differences, and just metric versus imperial difference in how you measure things. But foundationally, things that we had learned, one is unit rates. The U.S. don't like unit rates. That is one thing that is very challenging. Whereas outside the U.S., everybody uses unit rates. So we've adopted unit rates as a standard, but we do it a little different because one of the challenge unit rates purpose was to enable you to go fast, and so cost didn't priority. So you might not get the best cost in unit rates, especially if you're bidding and trying to pre-agree your rates with indicative quantities and stuff. So what we've done is we've developed what we call blocks, and we couldn't use Legos because it was trademarked. So we went with a term called blocks. So everything's kind of in the US, it would be like an assembly. So an air handler comes, it's say 60,000 CFM. It will have a concrete pad. It will have ductwork. It'll have piping to it for the chilled water, have instrumentation. All that is pre-designed, pre-priced in the block. And so as we go to different countries, we just toggle things. It's take and edit versus starting from scratch. But if we have to go bid our means and methods, so like in Europe, they would use an SMM7 as a standard method of measurement for how measure stuff. We have what we call notes on pricing. Same thing, it's just our standard that's universal, whether you're in the US, Europe, or Asia. You follow this standard method of measurement when you build up your unit rates. And what we found that enabled the US to be able to develop unit rates and bid unit rates without us going through the 6 and 8 month long bid analysis of trying to get pre-agreed rates up front. Just submit it based on our method of measurements, and they submit it back in our format. That is one of the, I think, standards that we've adopted that we've got from Europe of how they do business, and just kind of systematically use it worldwide. The good thing is Asia already, they do it at a different level, so we have to fit for purpose. They only go down so deep into the unit rates, whereas the US will go down all the way to all thread rods and stuff like that that's built up in our rates. So we do fit for purpose. But then you look at, that's overall generally how we use it. The other way we use it, we do pre-agree for change orders or progressive build type projects, which is our sustaining and maintenance efforts. Those are traditional unit rates the way you would see them in Europe. It's you pre-agree them. That's based on indicative quantity. As the scopes develop, your rates are tied to those unit rates. So to me, I think that helped us be faster than our traditional way of waiting on design, getting bids, doing the bid analysis. And as I mentioned earlier, if we waited on design to be done, it would be 4 years before we got a product to market, because it takes so long to build these size factories. So we have to have a different strategy to enable us to go faster.
Incredible. That's a great insight, because I think the misconception is that every owner does it the same way, or every general contractor estimates and gets the cost index the same way. It's completely different. Now, quick question, last one on this one. You mentioned Lotus. I would imagine you've moved on from Lotus at this stage. What's your pre-construction stack like here in the US? What do you use to keep track of the data and the historical stuff?
Yeah, it's is a great question and timely, because this is the conversation we're in today. Foundationally, Ecosys is a record and cost management tool. It's part of a Hexagon, our BIM system that we use, one of the suites for that. We standardize on that. Another tool is called BuildDots. BuildDots is the scanning tool that scans and tracks the progress of your projects. We tie it into our BIM system, into our cost system, so we can get earned value progress in the field, real time, tied to our cost, tied to our schedule. Those fundamentally are our foundational tools. And of course, P6, Primavera, for our scheduling. Those three applications are crucial to our success. Now, why I said it was timely is the conversation of how Lotus comes up is, IT is, the debate I'm having with IT is like, hey, you need to don't create these off the wall, unique homegrown applications and stuff. We need to have it and do it, systematically, make sure it's right and so forth. And my argument is, well, when Excel came out, it was a tool for estimators that took us to another level. Before then, I remember it was paper and an HP calculator on how we estimated. Excel enabled us to do fantastic stuff. And then you got into querying data, all the stuff you can do with it. And then as technology has evolved over time, you look at where we're at today with, we have what we call spec, chat GPT, or it's called chat box, like a GPT, but it's a chat box for specs. We have benchmark chat box, where if you want to benchmark something, you go to the chat box and it mines all this data to come up. So now we have all these new tools coming out with AI that we're creating. And the great thing about it is some of the stuff you don't have to be a programmer to do it. A lot of it is drag and drop coding, low code, that our estimators or cost people can do and quickly create a new tool. Like one we've got is called invoice validation. So instead of hiring quantity surveyors validating our invoicing tied to our scope, we now use AI invoice validation to go validate that, yep, they are owed that. That's what was in their bid, and it ties to the scope that we released to them. Validates. Another one is bid evaluation. It's an AI bid evaluation tool we put together because we were having problems. The contracts get so big. You find out after you sign the contract and you're halfway through the project, you get this big change order and said, oh, no, you owe us this because we excluded that in our contract. Like, miss that big exclusion in the contract. So now we use AI bid evaluation to go analyze those bids up front, and it summarizes any of the exclusions, ties it to our estimate, ties it to our schedule, and we understand, so we know exactly what we're signing up to, so we're not blindsided or surprised down the road with some big change order. So the industry, in my mind, is evolving much faster than it used to, especially with the tools that's coming out today. I mean, you look at Power BI. Power BI is another tool we use just to collect the information and report it out real time that just helps us communicate what we're doing on a time basis. So to me, technology has given us, an enhancement and making us more efficient in how we do business, to where now, when you look at the industry standards, pre-construction, very feasibility type estimates, they'll come in, oh, I'm plus or minus, I'm minus 20% plus 40% or plus or minus 50%. We can do a feasibility estimate and we're plus or minus 5% on that estimate. With the accuracy that we have. We did our Ireland project, which was in Slip outside of Dublin. We finished it, and we were plus or minus 1.5% to our feasibility estimate on a $7 billion project.
Wow. Quick question on that, right? That's incredible. And funny you mentioned that project. I've got a few friends, I'm obviously from Ireland, that have worked on that project. So that's an interesting full circle. Quick one. That 3%, right? Was that all your project controls team in-house, or did you employ consultancies to go through that with you?
No, great question. We absolutely employed consulting firms, surveying firms to augment our in-house staff. I mean, obviously, we are an owner, a semiconductor. We don't staff up and staff down for construction. We got to keep a steady workforce. Otherwise, you lose your knowledge and the efficiencies that we've gained. So we absolutely hire and employ a lot of quantity surveying companies that come in. And the way we do it, we have on our webpage, to be a quantity surveying company for Intel, you have to prove your return on investment. So if we're going to go pay you to work for us, we want to track value that you're going to bring us so we get that return. And I can tell you, most of the companies that we employ that help us in our project controls endeavor usually is 3 to 4x savings the cost, and some as great as 10x of what we pay them versus what they save us. And we track it two ways. One is called soft savings and one is called hard savings. Soft savings is they were part of the design process and help the engineering team come up with a different method, means of method, idea to drive costs down, to have improved costs. The other one, the hard savings is, they're reviewing our invoices, they're reviewing our bids, and they found things that we were going to either double pay or just found things that contractors were either, they call it fat finger, they slipped, it was an accident, didn't mean to get it in there, take it out.
Of course. There's quite a lot of those accidents, Joe, isn't there?
Yes.
I can hear all the general contractors, estimators, and pre-construction managers shouting at their radio going, no, we don't do that. We wouldn't never do that.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't, we always assume the best in people. So, but we do rely a lot on those quantity surveying companies to help us in those endeavors. And we had quite a few. We had 2 companies supporting us on the Ireland project itself.
Brilliant. No, 3%, I mean, that is obviously an incredible story. Are you seeing now with AI, with ChatGPT, and being able to analyze these contracts, the invoices, the scopes so quickly, are you seeing that that's going to be the norm now between 3 and 5%?
I think over time, I mean, anything with this new technology, we're still learning. And of course, the advantage with AI versus quantum physics is AI has the ability to learn. It keeps improving with the data. And, the more data it has, the better it gets. And so I do believe over time, as we get more information built and more data available to AI, it will absolutely. One thing we are working on right now is an AI estimating model where it goes, the engineering puts in the requirements for scope drivers, and the AI tool goes and estimates and gives us estimate. Now, that don't eliminate the estimator. What it requires now is for the estimator can get the cost of work quickly, but now you got to look for any of the scope implications and then look at the indirects. How are you going to deliver the project? How are you going to compensation strategy? So now they're focusing on the critical areas and getting in front of things instead of being reactive to things. So absolutely, I think the industry is evolving. And surprisingly enough, I think construction, you may remember years ago, they used to always at these conventions, I would go to pull up this chart about how things in the industry, every other industry has been improving since the 50s, except for construction, has always stayed this flat line for year over year over year, decades. But now, absolutely, if somebody would redo that chart, I guarantee you between 2010 to 2025, where we're at today, that curve has absolutely been on an upward trajectory because the industry is adopting the technology. We're improving, trying to leverage it and figure out how do we get better at what we do. And at Intel, our goal is to ensure we get the best value for Intel. We're not trying, we want everybody to get a fair, cost for what they're doing. But we want, as an owner, we want to get the best price, the best solution, and make sure that we are best in class at what we're doing. If we find out we're not best in class, then we failed. Technology is absolutely helping us get there.
I love it. And that's why our industry is so exciting right now. Google, Facebook, Amazon, they've had their day attracting the best, the most talented people out of the high schools. I think it's construction's time to be able to do that, because that's where the biggest lever, the moving the lever is going to happen. Quick one before you say that. You mentioned there you want to be the best of the best. Talk to me about project delivery. What is Intel's preferred project delivery just in the US? Are you looking at IPD, design build, design bid build? How do you go about building these mega projects?
Yeah, it varies by project and depending on the demand that, our schedule that we got to hit. But the IPD, the integrated project delivery strategy, is definitely one that we like. And we like target value design. We want to understand what good looks like and design to that target and try to get the best in class. But on average, a lot of ours is, size of the project would be either a CM at risk, a CM pass through, something like that. But it really depends on the project. We have design build, we have GMPs, we have multiple delivery strategies. The one thing we have to be careful with, because this is something that a lot of owners get, you have to make sure you marry the right compensation strategy with the right delivery strategy. If you put the wrong compensation strategy, which based on some experience that we've seen historically, we had a project that had a CM pass through that wanted to do lump sum with the trades, but the CM held the papers to the trades on lump sum. From an owner's perspective, that is a bad situation. For a trade, that is perfect. I mean, because when something, when we said, hey, this should cost $20 million, the CM who we hired is on a pass through, hired the trades on a lump sum because we wanted, predictability. They come in, no, it's 30 million. It's a pass through. We have no legs to stand on. We have to pay what they said. And so we have learned over time to make sure that our construction team understands when we're defining a delivery strategy that we take into consideration the compensation strategy so we don't get caught in a bad situation as an owner as we go down this path.
There you have it, folks. Lesson learned. We don't do that again. Quick one now. There's so much to get through. You've got a hard stop in 12 minutes. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly.
Quick question. With the price escalation of so many products, recently, do you do any direct purchasing?
Yeah, we do a lot. I mean, it depends on, the material, the equipment, but we have our own commodities team that negotiates commodity agreements with different suppliers and manufacturers around the globe. And then there's, bulk items and things like that. We will leave that and the DB to go and source where it makes sense. And we also have to look at it at the project level, because if we're supplying stuff, then we're on the hook for it if it's late. And depending on the contract we're in, we just lost all of our contractual obligations with that supplier because we just put ourselves in the critical path of what they signed up for. So, but we're very picky and specific of what we source versus what we want them to source, so we can make sure. Now, being the size we are, we depend a lot on our commodities team to negotiate the right, contracts and agreements and cost projects themselves. So, and we have great relationships with suppliers around the world.
Good, love it. And how great are those relationships when the current administration are putting tariffs on almost everything outside of the US? Talk to me about that, Joe.
Yeah, I think the first thing we realized is that I think my team being the project controls and eager as we are, when it first came out, we wanted to go see, okay, well, we got a lot of projects going on. What is the impact for us based on the tariffs? And I have a PhD construction economist in my team that is all over this. And first thing we learned was we don't know what this is going to do. we learned very quickly that there's a lot of, we would go on one direction, and we had what was reported out and what we got from the administration that would be the impact. A week later, it had all changed to something else. So we then looked at a best case, worst case scenario. At the end of the day, we found out it's not, even at the worst case scenario, the way the U.S. is set up, it's not that big of an impact on our projects themselves. So that gave us a huge relief. Regardless what happens, the way the things come in and are sourced through the country, it's not that big of an impact. It will be some, but not the order of magnitude we thought it was going to be.
Brilliant. I love hearing that, because you know yourself, when you hear tariffs, you worry constantly about how it's going to affect construction, and there's just too much to build, whether it be homes, whether it be chip manufacturers, hotels, roads, water, wastewater. It's just too much to do, not enough time. Love it. Thanks for that, Joe. Now, last question: what excites you most in your current role now at a company like Intel? We talked about innovation there, we talked about technology, we talked about delivery methods. What's the one thing that, if you were to put your finger on, or what gets you up in the morning to be able to go to work and go, I can't wait to get my teeth into that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can tell you, it's the people that I work with. I work with some of the brightest, smartest people in construction on the planet. And when I talk to colleagues and go to seminars around the globe, and I tell them that, I'm in construction, but I work for a semiconductor company in high tech. How do you get in construction, and how is that fascinating? Wouldn't the other side? The construction is so high tech now because we're building leading edge technology stuff. The technology in construction, the way the industry is evolving is so exciting. Construction is at a pivotal moment. We are turning, tide in where we are heading today. How we did business 5 years ago, we don't do business that way in construction today. It's changed that fast. But what excites me the most is the people in construction. In the talent, the young talent. I was a guest speaker at a graduate class here at Arizona State University not too long ago for up and comers in the construction industry for the construction management course. And the enthusiasm the young people have and what they can bring to the construction industry is just so exciting. And that gets me out of bed every morning to come to work and watch industry where I came in before Excel was even invented in this. And sometimes people say, well, you came in when the pyramids were built, but it feels that long. But I can tell you, this is the most exciting time. And you're absolutely right. All the programmers and stuff, all the shiny red balls and the shiny toys were all at the other companies and stuff. That's where everybody wanted to go into. Today, when I look at my department itself, we're construction project controls. We have our own programmers who are having to learn construction in order to program for construction, because you can't estimate. An estimator today can't just work Excel. They got to know how to work Power BI. They got to understand applications like Planner. They got to be able to connect things better. Just the up-leveling of skill that construction demands is just so exciting. So that's what gets me out of bed today, is the industry is changing. We're watching the industry turn a page and become something that people, 20 years ago would never see construction where it's at today. Because even in the field, and I know it probably should have been a short answer and I made a long answer, but even out in the field, when I do my field walks, the trade people that we work with are on a different level at a skill set from what they were 20 years ago. Not that they were bad, it's just the industry is evolving. The people are learning. I mean, it's continuously learning and evolving. And now they're learning and got the tools to do it. And with the young kids coming into the industry, is really helping bring that technology to construction. And that, to me, is what's exciting.
Yeah, and the big thing about that, Joe, is 10 years ago, 20 years ago, people would come in from finance or IT on that side of things, and they would bring ideas to construction, and they'd be shut down pretty quickly. But that's not the case now. People are way more open to change, to transformation, especially on the project controls, pre-construction and estimating side. So when they're coming in with fresh ideas, the VPs and the directors are turning around and going, yeah, let's try that. That's going to help my estimator or pre-construction manager do less of the heavy lifting. Then it's got to be a goer.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on.
Yeah, I love it, Joe. Listen, we've got 3 minutes left. I want to thank you so much for your time. I know your time is precious. You've got a bit of work to be doing. Let's be honest. So I really do thank you that. If there is anybody that's interested in connecting with you, we always send people to LinkedIn. Is it okay if I put your LinkedIn profile below on the show notes?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to connect. I have a huge passion to help the younger generation come into construction, because I think construction has gotten a bad rap years, and now it's changing where people really want to be in construction, and I think it's fantastic. So absolutely welcome to put my LinkedIn connection in there, and happy to connect with anybody to help move this industry along.
Joe, you're an absolute gentleman. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. This was indeed a pleasure.